Well, that was really great to see into people's gardens and to hear from them what they like about Easter. I wonder if you've had a bit more time to get into the garden yourself lately. I have. Let me show you a bit about my garden. See, in my garden, I like to have everything just in its right place. Have a look. See, I've got this cool aquaponics garden where there's fish underneath that are helping the plants grow, and the plants are there keeping the water clean for the fish. Everything in its right place. Plants up top, the fish underneath, the yabbies in a separate tank so they don't eat the fish, the worms cleaning up the dead roots, everything there in its right place. And it's not just in that bit of the garden, there's other bits too. The roses, they go in the rose bed. The chickens in the chicken run, everything where it should be, everything in its right place. But sometimes things aren't in their right place. You're just walking along the garden and suddenly, ow! Stepped on a bindi. That's not in the right place. Or I'm in the backyard and walking along and squelch. Oh no, one of the chickens got out of their run and they pooed on the grass and I stepped in it. That's not in the right place. There's grass in the veggie patch, weeds through the rose beds. Things just are where they shouldn't be. Things aren't in the right place. So I've got to get to work. I've got to fix this. I've got to work hard. I've got to pull the weeds out of the garden bed. I've got to spray for bindis. I've got to fix the chicken coop so the chickens don't get out. It's hard work keeping everything in its right place. It's really hard work keeping everything where it should be. Now, we've had a bit more time for gardening lately. Maybe you have too. Why? Well, because the government's told you, stay in your place. Stay at home, don't go out. And why is that? Well, because there's something here that shouldn't be here, something not in the right place. You know what that is, don't you? Yeah, the coronavirus. COVID-19, it's here, and we don't want it here. We wish it would go away, but because it's here, we're being told, stay in your place. Stay at home. And we know people are working very hard to put it back in its place. So our governments and our scientists are working very hard to put this thing back in its place. I wonder if it's hard for you to stay in your place. Is it? Is it hard? Because you want to be out and about. We want to go to the park. We want to go to the playground or the beach. We even want to go to school. But we can't. We can't go to the Easter show. We want to be there. We want to be here at church singing together and hunting for Easter eggs and patting the little sheep and chickens in the petting zoo in our beautiful new car park. But we can't. We want to be doing all those things. Why? Because it's Easter. It's Easter. And that's what we do at Easter, but we can't do that. And that's pretty sad, isn't it? But did you know Easter is the story of something being put back in its place. It's about the hard work of something terrible being put back in its place. And it's a big problem being dealt with. It's not like weeds in my garden or chicken poop in the backyard. It's even bigger than the coronavirus. But it was hard work putting it back in its place. And this story starts in a garden. You see, when God made people, he made them a beautiful garden for them to live in. A garden full of great things, such a beautiful garden even more beautiful than Annie's garden we saw in the video before. And he filled it with beautiful things, and he filled it with things, trees and plants and all kinds of good things. It's full of trees and life and every good thing. This garden was wonderful, everything there in its right place. But it wasn't enough. The people wanted more than that. They disobeyed God. They said no to God. They said no to living God's ways. They chose to ignore him. Because they did this, they let something terrible into the world. Something that should not have been there. The worst problem in the world. They let in death, the great enemy, the thing that shouldn't be in God's world. It was in the wrong place, and it was here in our world. And we know it's hard work to put things in their proper place. And so from that time, from the very beginning, people have been working so hard to try and get rid of death, to try and hold it away as far as possible. But how do we keep death away? I know, I've got an idea. Maybe we can make ourselves fitter and more healthy. Maybe we can get smarter and make some better medicines. Or maybe we can make some more money and so we can live more comfortably. Or we can buy cool toys which make us feel way cooler and way younger. Or at least we can make ourselves, look younger. But in the end, death sticks around. We can't put it back in its place despite all our hard work. No matter how hard we try, we can't get rid of it. There's only one person that can get rid of it. Only one person can put death where it belongs. Even though people let it in, only God can fix it. And that's the story of Easter. But do you realize something? In order for God to come and deal with the problem of sin that's in the wrong place, he had to leave his right place and come be with us. The story of Jesus is the story of God himself become a man. God who made the world coming into the world. This is amazing. This has never happened before. It's like the author writing himself coming into the book. It's like the painter putting themselves into the picture somehow. It's like the video game creator putting themselves into the video game somehow, Jumanji style. Jesus, God come into the world to be with us. Jesus. In the world that we stuffed up by bringing death into it. His place is the royal throne in heaven, and he came as a simple carpenter. His place was being bowed down to by everyone, but instead they made fun of him. They didn't want him around, and in the end, they killed him. The God who gave everyone life, killed on the cross. The God who gave them life, they wanted to put him to death. And they did. That's what we remember on Good Friday. They killed him along with a couple of thieves. The Son of God himself, dying the death of an ordinary thief that Friday. Dying in the wrong place, dying in our place where we should have been. But hang on, Murray, I'm not a thief. Well, I'm not so sure. Ask yourself the question. Have you ever taken something that wasn't yours? I know I have. Have you ever taken credit for something that you didn't do? I have. Have we ever taken the good gifts of God, of life and beauty and all the wonderful things of this world and not said thanks? Have we pretended that he didn't even exist? I know I have. We've all done things wrong, all of us, except Jesus, right? So that's why it's crazy that he was there on the cross in our place. See, it looked like death had won. It looked like death had the last laugh, that it had beaten Jesus. But no, it hadn't. Do you remember what the women found when they went to the tomb on that Easter Sunday morning? We saw it in that first video. What did they find? Nobody. No Jesus. Jesus had beaten death. But our Bible reading before showed us exactly what Jesus was doing as he beat death and came back to life. I'll read it again. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 20. But as it is, Christ has been raised from the dead, the firstfruits of those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through a man, the resurrection of the dead also comes through a man. For just as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. And what was Jesus doing as he was being raised from the dead? He was being the firstfruits. Remember that, the firstfruits from before? What does that mean? Well, it's like a promise, remember? Good firstfruits mean that there's a good harvest coming. And Jesus was being like the firstfruits. Beating death was a promise. Because Jesus came back to life, we know that we can come back to life too. Because Jesus beat death, he's beaten death for us. It's a promise. Jesus beat death. Jesus killed death. Jesus put death back where it belongs. He put it right back where it belongs. The man, Jesus Christ, put death in his grave. Jesus took our place, killed on Friday as a thief, but raised on Sunday as a king. I'll read again. 1 Corinthians 15. For he must reign as a king until he puts all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be abolished is death. Killed on Friday as a thief, raised on Sunday as a king, the man Jesus Christ put death in its grave. Death, the last enemy of all, Jesus defeated it for you and for me. It's really hard work putting things back where they belong in their place, and it was such hard work for Jesus to die on the cross in our place. But he was happy to do it to bring you life and to bring me life. Now, I reckon I can work hard and keep the weeds out of my garden if I work really hard, but I have to do it again and again and again. And I reckon our government and our scientists and the Australian people will work hard and we'll get through this coronavirus thing together. But it won't be the last terrible thing that happens. It won't be the last problem we face together. Now, I trust my hard work. I trust the government's hard work, our people's hard work, but not as much as I trust Jesus' hard work. You see, when Jesus beat death, he did it once and for all. So that if we trust in him, we can have new life. How do we trust Jesus? Well, he's the firstfruits. Being the firstfruits, he's the promise. Because he beat death, death can be beaten for us. Because he came back to life, he can promise life to us, and we can trust that. Jesus' hard work, but he put death where it belongs, in the grave, bringing new life for you, bringing new life for me. And that's the good news of Easter.